Let's do this. This is video mostly for my friends, but I think I might upload it in public. This is my year in review of all the games that I played and beat this year. It's not every single game I played. There are a couple that I played, in fact, quite a bit of, but these are all like the single player games I played. And when I evaluate these, I am talking about them as a single player experience in the year 2024. Many of them are from my backlog, but at least two were new releases. One was like new enough for release that I can say three were new releases, and some of them were really old, and some of them were only a little old, and some of them I had purchased many years ago and then never played, and then some of them I just thought I would like to play someday, and I found the opportunity to do so this year. So I guess one other thing, my grading scale, my friends who I send my little reviews to as I go are kind of familiar with this, but I wanted to have a grading scale where there's some significant gradation on the goodness or badness of a game. I would hope that most games I play, especially since I'm usually selected from games known to be acclaimed classics, might fall into like the 6 or higher. For me, 5 out of 10 is like a neither good nor bad. A 7 is like a good, and I would likely recommend that game. In contrast to what I think like a lot of gaming journalism outlets, especially years ago, and I don't really read like modern game reviews anymore, but years ago, if like IGN gave something a 7 out of 10, that was a crucifixion. And I want a 7 out of 10 to be like a good score. But in particular, I want like a 7 to be very distinct from like a 9. 9 is like this exquisite experience, and 10 is like a masterpiece. 10 is like, I can't. This is like, you gotta play this game. Okay, that's enough rambling. So I'll go in the order that I played these games. The first one I played was Pizza Tower, and Pizza Tower was really good. It was kind of a wacky, crazy game. Every level found a way to surprise me. I had a lot of fun with it. To really get in the mood, I ate pizza every night that I played this game, so it's a good thing that I beat it relatively quickly. But it was great. Took me a little while to get used to some of the mechanics. It definitely, like, the more you play it, the better you get. You can string together nice combos, but it's great. Felt fresh. I know it's heavily inspired by Wario Land, which I've never played, and I'd like to give it a shot now. But Pizza Tower was awesome. Then I played Mother. Mother, I would give it a 5 out of 10. I played it on the Switch, re-released as Earthbound Beginnings, I think they called it. I'd always kind of wanted to play the Mother series. I played Earthbound 2 or 3 years ago. I'll get to Mother 3 someday. And then I had the chance to play Mother, and it's just not that good. There's a lot of, like, the game's really hard and punishing in a way that's not very pleasant to like the modern gamer. I abused the Switch's restore points pretty heavily to cheat death, and then partway through the game I found out that you need to be like a sufficient level to wake the dragon, and so then I had to grind. And also, Earthbound feels so similar to Mother, both in terms of the writing and the story and the mechanics, that Earthbound is just better. Anyways, next I played Metal Gear Solid, and this was a real treat. I played it on the Metal Gear, I don't know, whatever, Master Collection or something. I would give it an 8 out of 10. It's definitely, like, in gameplay, it's rough around the edges in a lot of ways, but it's such an exquisite experience in terms of the story, and especially the possibility. My favorite... Well, I had a lot of moments I really enjoyed, but one of my favorite moments was in the jail cell, where I thought of a particular way to escape, and then I learned online later there are like 2 completely other ways you could escape, and all of them are something where you could think, okay, I'm trapped in this jail cell, I want to try to escape, what could I try? And that's like an idea you might concoct, and it works in the game. And there's a lot of stuff that felt like it was like that in the game. It was awesome. I don't know if I'll order these tiers in order of their goodness. Maybe I won't. Maybe for 4 or 10 or worse. And then right afterwards, I played Metal Gear Solid 2, which was also a real treat. I mean, the story was out of this world. The gameplay was not my favorite. Really, the only complaint I had about this game is a lot of times the gameplay just felt like a thing you have to do to get to the next cutscene, and it felt well worth it and well rewarding. But there was a little bit of me that thought this could be a movie instead of a game. There was only maybe like close to the end, some of the final sequences really felt like, oh, this is utilizing the medium of video games to like the full capacity. But nevertheless, excellent experience. Really enjoyed. Well, 8 out of 10 experience. Would definitely recommend it. Then I played Link to the Past. Another game I would give an 8 out of 10. I played Link to the Past maybe like a touch more than halfway as a kid. I got stuck in the Swamp Palace, and I did minor cheating. I would do restore points before boss fights. But Link to the Past, I was kind of amazed at how smoothly it played. Firstly, I had like a lot of residual knowledge. I didn't realize like I cruised through the first half of that game from how much I loosely remembered. Dungeons were maybe a little bit too easy. Only the Ice Palace was like particularly elaborate, but it played well. And maybe only one moment I looked up how to get the Quake medallion, because the game really just lets you explore, and people will give you hints if you talk to them, but it just lets you explore and generally goes pretty seamlessly. But when I realized I needed the Quake medallion, I didn't want to wander, so I looked up where to get it. Just a coincidence, the next game I played was Quake, and Quake was good, despite being how old it was. I don't know, probably coming on like 30 years. I think that was like mid to late 90s. The gunplay still really good. The only thing is like the level design is pretty like repetitive. A lot of levels are just a big labyrinth, and they sort of feel the same, even though they might visually seem different. Like, as much as I remember the rocket launcher being a lot of fun, I remember some of the other guns, like using the other guns, nail gun and shotgun and all that. But I don't like really remember the levels. I barely remember the bosses. A solid but not like incredible experience. The next game I played was Undertale, which I had played partly. Where's my image for Undertale? Where'd it go? Which I had played part of the way once upon a time and then put it down, never finished. Undertale is a masterpiece. This is really one of the best games I've ever played. I don't know why I didn't finish it the first time around. I was kind of almost surprised at how much I remembered, and even now, like I probably it was February, maybe March when I played it. I think I could tell you scene by scene everything that happens. Every single part of it is like an amazing, tight experience, incredibly well thought out, and does something. One of the underrated things I think it does is that it's like an RPG for the non-RPG fan. Compared to Mother, not to just dunk on it, but like where Mother is a very like traditional JRPG, grindy, kind of hard. Undertale is an RPG, but it doesn't feel like it. You never feel like you're not grinding really. You're never grinding. And every battle you fall into, like random encounters, they still feel like they could be fun or worthwhile. It's just as fun to like see the monsters' attacks as it is to find ways to spare them. Incredible in every facet. And then the next game I played, which was on release, was Animal Well. I was excited to see that Donkey, I've been a long Donkey fan, was publishing a game. And I thought, I'll give it a shot. I'll see. I trust Donkey's opinions. And I was blown away. Animal Well, one of the best games I've ever played. I mean, I feel lucky to have played it. And in particular, I played it. It also is like driven by this sense of creative vision that's part of what makes Undertale so great, and I guess what makes Metal Gear so great. That like the whole experience was so amazing. I played it, I'll call it like kind of half co-op. Like I shared notes with a friend, and we both had a blast doing that. And one of the things that was really incredible about it is like having played just a lot of games over a lot of years, there's something algorithmic to it. You know, I sort of like, especially in a series that I'm familiar with. It's like Zelda. It's like I've solved half the puzzles before I've seen them, you know, because it's like, oh, they did this puzzle in Ocarina of Time and I solved it then. You know, okay, so it's not new to me. Animal Well, like, so most games will follow this kind of Chekhov's gun principle. Animal Well does that, but you don't realize that there's 100 guns hanging on the wall. You like every single detail can matter if you want it to, if you want to get to like the deeper layers of puzzles. And it was a real treat to try and solve them. I didn't, you know, eventually I got to the point where after finding all the eggs, it was time to hunt down bunnies, and I decided like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do this alone or with the help of one friend. So I did look up like generally how to find them. I didn't go and pursue all of them, but some of the stuff was amazing. It was brilliantly creative. An awesome experience. The atmosphere was incredible. I mean, I was, and especially like I said, there's this sort of algorithmic nature to how I play games now. This reminds me of being like 10 years old and renting a game for the weekend and playing it, and it might be a single player game, and I would play and my sister would watch me, and then after I had like an hour session, she would play, and then she would find something completely new, and I'd be like, wow, I didn't even think of doing that. And this like brought me that sense of like, I didn't think that was even possible in this game. I didn't even consider that or think of that. Totally an amazing experience. One of the best games I've ever played. Next I played Majora's Mask. At risk of overrating it, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. It is rough around the edges, and there's like, I've criticized some games and given them much lower scores than I gave Majora's Mask, but I feel like Majora's Mask has something to say, at least thematically, in its character and its world building. There's a lot to talk about. If you're willing to give the game time, like really a lot of time, you actually could discover basically everything without using a guide. I used a guide to help plan out my days and my playthrough, which I did 100%. Could be like, I don't know, 25 hours, whatever I spent, as opposed to like 55 hours. This is, again, there's probably some personal bias coming into this one, but I thought Majora's Mask was really excellent. Next I played Mirror's Edge, and I thought it was good, but it had some real drawbacks in the single player. Like, it's a game that's better after you've already played it, basically. Like, it's better on a revisit once you're familiar with all the mechanics. Getting introduced to it the first time, the learning curve was like a little steep. It took me a while to figure out how some of the moves really work. Like, I remember struggling with wall running a bit, and like in particular, it wasn't always clear if you're supposed to hold down the key or the mouse or just click to perform an action. And especially the one thing that really broke the flow for me, because the game excels when you have the flow of like putting together a nice line. What broke the flow is when you're playing it the first time, one, a lot of times you don't know where to go. You have to look around, you have to survey, you have to pause all the time after making like every 2 jumps or vaults. And 2, basically every level with enemies, especially like the later levels where you're facing SWAT soldiers, it just feels like the best course of action, unless you have the perfect line already planned out, is just to fight one of them, take their gun, and then shoot the other guys. And that totally takes you out of the rhythm of what makes the game good. I played Super Mario Bros. 2. I tried playing it on console, and then I got to like the World 3 and died, and it made me game over. And this was at a friend's place. I don't have an NES of my own. And so then I played on Switch, and I did kind of dishonorably abuse the restore points. I give it a 5 out of 10. Maybe I deserve to give it a better shot, but it feels, you do a lot of picking up and throwing objects. You beat every single boss that way. You fight like, I don't know how many birdos, and all the bosses are like, you pick stuff up and throw them at them. And it also is like maybe a touch awkward for me to be using the run button and the pick up throw button in the same, assigned to the same button mapping. I just didn't love it. It wasn't bad, but I didn't really think it was that good. Maybe this is a controversial take. I don't know. Next, I played Celeste. This one's probably going to be a hot take for a lot of people. I would give Celeste a 6 out of 10. It was good, but like I didn't really like it that much. There were some levels that I did think were quite good, and some that I did not. The one with the wind, um, that drove me crazy. I don't generally love this type of like hard platformer genre, but I played Super Meat Boy in the past, and I thought that was much better than Celeste. Um, in general, I felt like a lot of the sequences, especially like the boss or level end sequences, were kind of drawn out. I just had a hard time getting into it. Then I played Warcraft 3. I spent a lot of time on Warcraft 3. I played. I bought this like years ago when I was into Hearthstone, and then I think I got grandfathered into having the reforged one. Although I played it on the original graphics, and I really don't know if mechanics changed under the hood or not. But I played every campaign, both from Reign of Chaos and Frozen Throne. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. And, you know, that would vary by campaign, but I had a really good time. Yeah, again, some campaigns were better than others. And I, in particular, I like the variety. I'm not, like, I'd say I'm not an RTS guy. I don't know, is Pikmin an RTS? I'm a big Pikmin guy. But I like that, like, maybe half the missions were not really traditional base build, amass an army type stuff. I like that there was a mix of like sometimes you crawl through a dungeon, sometimes you explore through an area, whatever. Thought it was fun. Next, I played Fire Emblem: The Blazing Sword. I call myself a Fire Emblem fan. I don't know if that's like true. I haven't really played that many Fire Emblem games. Give it a 6 out of 10. The mechanics are good. You know, it holds up. Certainly holds up. But the story is like mush. I didn't realize how bad. I think Fire Emblems have like historically been praised for their story, or maybe at least for their characters. Virtually every cutscene was like skippable, and the dialogue was like awkward. And my only real gameplay complaint with Blazing Sword is that the difficulty scaling's kind of whack. The Lynn's campaign at the beginning is like way too easy. I know that they wanted to do it like a tutorial campaign, and I think they especially made it easy because this was North Americans' first time playing Fire Emblem in all likelihood. And then the next 10 or so levels are like a moderate easy difficulty. And then it gets like pretty hard at the end, and a bunch, like all my unclassed units died. Not like crazy hard, I still beat it, but it definitely like went from like a bit too easy to like, oh, it's kind of hard now. A little awkward. Then I played Psychonauts. Psychonauts was good. Also, there were some parts of Psychonauts that were like, you know, this was from that era where every game was like a 3D platformer collectathon, and because that was in vogue. This didn't really have to be a collectathon. I thought a lot of the collectibles were like unnecessary. And at times, I'm not like a waypoint stan, but at times I wish that I had like a waypoint, because there are a few points where some character would say, "Oh, go to this place," and then I would like show up and feel completely lost. It took me way too long to get inside Sasha's lair, and then also at the end, for like no reason, Meat Circus was a really difficult level. But in general, I thought the levels were a lot of fun. Milkman Conspiracy, Lungfishopolis. I think everyone talks about how good those are. I really liked Waterloo World. And the others were certainly decent as well. Then I played Hey Pikmin. I got this because I was listening to the Pikmin soundtrack a bunch, and I consider myself a big Pikmin fan, and I didn't have this game. The soundtrack is really good, and the rest of the game is fine. It's not like a bad game, but if anything, it's just really boring, and I certainly would not recommend trying to go for 100% experience, because the little medal icon you get for not losing a Pikmin in a level, like your Pikmin are going to die for unfair reasons. It was better to just complete it once and sort of enjoy the soundtrack and the sights and sounds. It's fine. Kirby Air Ride. This is going to be my hottest take. This is like a cult classic game, and I thought it was no good. In fact, I gave it a 3 out of 10. As a single player experience, okay, everyone online I would see, because I was first I was like, oh, Kirby Air Racing game, I'll give it a shot. You know, I like Mario Kart. And everything then that I thought the racing mode was like not very good. And then everyone I would see online was talking about how the best part was playing City Ride with usually with their siblings as a kid. And when I tried it, I felt like lost and confused, and like the controls weren't that good. And I gave it a couple attempts, and what I really came to realize is it felt like the kind of game where to enjoy City Ride, you have to already like know all the secrets. You're just basically, if you've played it a lot, you'll eventually enjoy it. But I didn't want to stick around for that. I had a bad time. I did not think it was like a pleasant single player experience in the year 2024. Metroid Fusion, I think I was just trying to fit a game in before Echoes of Wisdom came out, and Metroid Fusion was pretty good. I loved Super Metroid. I had given that a 9 out of 10, which maybe overrates it. I don't know. Maybe it's the mood I was in when I played it, but I thought Super Metroid was like really excellent. Metroid Fusion was good. It was a little more on rails than I would have liked, and there was a lot of just figuring out which wall is fake so I can bomb it or shoot it and then go through it to explore the area. A few boss fights were extremely hard, kind of for no reason. You'd have to do like a ton of backtracking if you died to them. But overall, it was still good. I had a good time. I think I wouldn't consider myself like a Metroidvania gamer, but on average, I have enjoyed Metroidvanias. Next, Echoes of Wisdom. Played it on release, and when I first played it, I think I had given it a 7, but I would honestly downgrade it to a 6. Honestly, this game's like, there's good, the core of the game is good, but it has a lot of big flaws. One, it tends to kind of draw out too long. Now, there are some puzzles, even the late game, like I realized like, oh, I can actually grab onto a bat and use that to fly across a gap. I didn't think of that. Or there's some other puzzles that kind of came up late game. I didn't think of new solutions. But there is a lot of stacking up beds to cross a gap, or stacking up water blocks to make a waterfall to climb up something. It really feels like the creativity starts to fizzle out and seriously drop off. And the level of exposition, like cutscenes and dialogue and like mini cutscenes, excruciating. Everything is explained to you in overwhelming detail. I can read between the lines. There are moments where like the most obvious thing happens on screen, and then Try explains it to you. She goes like, "Oh, it goes like, oh wow, that's kind of. Didn't the king look weird? You think he's an imposter? Wow. It's like he just came out of the void and he looks evil. Of course, you don't have to explain it. Too much of that. So the experience dragged on, and there were other moments like the side quests were mostly lame and not worth doing. After that, I played another Zelda game though. A lot of Zeldas here for me. Played Wind Waker, and I would give Wind Waker an 8 out of 10. It was a good experience. I actually played it. I think a lot of people regard. Also, I played the original GameCube version, which might matter for some mechanical changes. I was like sort of anticipating it to be a drag at some point. A lot of people regard the Triforce Quest as this big stain on an otherwise excellent game. And if you actually just talk to enough NPCs, if you get the fish to fill out your map and you write down some notes, totally fine. I had to consult a walkthrough an extremely minimal amount of times. For like pretty minor things. Even stuff like the ghost ship, I figured out how to do that. Getting all the Triforce charts. And it was good, and I think it's carried a little bit by its graphics and music. I also personally didn't mind the fact that sometimes you're sailing in one direction for 9 minutes. Thought that was fine. But I could definitely, entertain the kind of complaints that people might have. Also, combat starts to get a little stale. There's a lot of you fight 3 Dark Nuts that happens in the late game, and that got pretty boring. It's like, oh, okay, I wait to parry it. Next, I played Pokemon Colosseum. And the little blurb I wrote for my friends, I really droned on a lot about some weird mechanics in it. Pokemon Colosseum's good. I gave it a 6 out of 10, which maybe is like a weird score, because I do sort of think it's better than that. I wouldn't really recommend it to somebody who, isn't like into video games. But if you're into Pokemon, I would like definitely recommend it. If you told me like, oh yeah, I played Sword and Shield, thought they were kind of bad, and I played Scarlet and Violet and they were fine, I would say go back and play Pokemon Colosseum. You'll probably find it fresh and interesting. There's a lot in the game that is sort of like ill-tuned. And also, it gets maybe a little bit of a bump from its atmosphere. I mean, it's got kind of like a great, cyberpunk, almost steampunk, rust punk, every type of punk it's in this game. It's pretty cool though. Did a lot of interesting things. The like snagging, the idea of snagging Pokemon was like a good, an interesting narrative thing. And I played this to like through the entire post game. Not only did I do the post game content, but I purified every Pokemon. And that last part, that last stretch is like pretty tedious. You're grinding somewhere, no matter what. But like maybe you can, if you really set up your team well, you can delay grinding until like super post game or further. But if you're purifying Pokemon ever, like more than basically like 4 of them to keep on your team, you're grinding at some point. Then I played F-Zero GX, and F-Zero GX was awesome. I would give it an 8 out of 10. This game really got on my radar because I knew it was made by Amusement Vision. I loved Super Monkey Ball 1 and especially 2. And it's kind of built with that same... I mean, it's built on the Super Monkey Ball engine, for one, but in particular it's built with the same like ethos that drove those games. Like it's... those are like hard games, 1 even more than 2. And the idea is like you just got to build up the skills to get better. And when I tried to beat story mode, I thought that seems like a reasonable thing to do. Okay, I play mission 1, pretty easy. I realized I need some tickets. Okay, I do a Grand Prix, or I kind of hang in there. But it was a novice, and it was the easiest Grand Prix, so I managed to win, get some more tickets. Mission 2 took me like an hour and a half, and then I think I had enough tickets for Mission 3, and that took me like another hour and a half. And then I realized I've been playing story mode on normal too. I'm not even on harder difficulties. And then I was like, well, I got to get more tickets. And I couldn't even beat the other Grand Prix on novice. And so I had to, lock in, focus, practice a little bit. And it was really an incredibly satisfying experience to feel like I built up some skills. Every time I beat a chapter in the story mode, I got so excited. I had a great time with this. I feel like this game really... It has incredibly tight controls and mechanics, and it begs you to master them. But it doesn't. It's not a game that it feels like it's taunting you. It's not a game that feels like it's being unfair. It's not even a game that feels like they expected you to beat it. There's something about it where I just thought, maybe the creators thought it's fine. Like maybe they expected that it would take a lot of play sessions or revisits to get good enough to beat story mode. I read some old forum threads, and some people even said, don't even worry about story mode until you can beat cups on expert. And by the end, I was able to win some cups on expert. So it was a very satisfying journey. I don't think I'll be out there grinding time attack in F-Zero GX, but it's an experience that I'll remember very fondly. And then finally, beat it earlier today, Super Mario Sunshine. I've tried to play this game in the past a few times, gotten some partial playthroughs, mostly got frustrated with controls, and then one evening I also kind of did some couch co-op with a friend, and we finished the last area or 2 into the end game. I would give it a 7 out of 10. It's rough around the edges too, and the atmosphere is pretty top-notch, but the controls are kind of awkward and hard to learn. And then once you do learn them, mostly plays pretty well. I would say a lot of the areas and shines were fun, were pleasant, and a couple stick out like nasty sore thumbs. Especially any level with the climbable grates. The way you're intended to beat Pianta Village 3 was like horrible and tedious. You got to do some jumps with bad depth perception, with awkward camera. You got to deal with these great mechanics. Rico Harbor 3 took me forever. If you know where you're going, that's not a hard shine. But if you don't, you follow the arrows, and the odds of you falling off or making a mistake and having to re-go through this whole obstacle course really high. So that definitely took it down a notch for me. Not like I would not call this like an excellent game for the Pantheon, but it was good. And maybe that's a hot take, but again, the vibes were top notch. That certainly helped. That's all the games that I played and beat this year, or that I'm going to talk about. So, this is a little recap for my friends. I know enjoy this, but maybe somebody watched this and you can post in the comments your hot take about how I'm an idiot for giving Kirby's Air Ride a 3 and how I've horribly overrated Majora's Mask. But let me know, do you agree, disagree? What do you think of this grading scale? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll post again in a year, 2025. We'll see how many games I play.